prophet from India Abhigya Anand predicted, only 3 zodiac signs will get 1 million in 2026, the richest signs. Prophets of the East rarely mention specific dates and specific names, but Abhigya Anand made an exception. His new vision concerns only 3 zodiac signs, which will find their way to 1 million in 2026. This statement sounded like a challenge to all those who still doubt the power of their own destiny. And today, the Horoscope of Luck 2026 channel will reveal who will experience this financial breakthrough. These are not figurative metaphors or general statements. We are talking about specific potential that will be activated in the selected signs and is capable of turning their year into a stage of big decisions, big risks, and even bigger rewards. Anand emphasized that these people will have a chance that will not come again. Before revealing the 3 wealthiest future leaders of 2026, make sure you are subscribed to the Horoscope of Luck 2026 channel. Here you will receive not just predictions, but in-depth esoteric analytics that work with your perspective, opportunity, and energy of choice. Write your sign in the comments to see if you are one of those destined to rise to a new financial level. Aries. Aries sees 2026 as a year when money ceases to be just a resource and becomes an instrument of influence, scale, and freedom. Indian prophet Abhigya Anand singles out this sign among the millionaire contenders not because of random luck, but because of a combination of determination, quick reactions, and a willingness to act where others are still deliberating. For Aries, this period is not about passively waiting for a win, but about taking concrete steps that lead to very large capital, changing their approach to work, restarting their financial strategy, rigorously auditing their habits, and making bold decisions that have long been postponed. Aries becomes someone who stops earning by inertia and begins to build assets, not just generating income, but building a system that works even when they are resting. The first key to this forecast is professional reorientation. Aries is being given a clear signal. Work that relies solely on physical effort or constant presence is no longer promising. Instead, areas where quick decisions, negotiation skills, responsibility, and process management are valued are coming to the fore. This could be starting your own business, moving into high-end sales, project management, digital business, consulting, or expert services, where Aries not only performs tasks, but also influences the outcome of the entire system. The forecast clearly emphasizes that as soon as Aries stops limiting themselves to just a salary and starts creating multiple sources of income, a path opens up to an amount that once seemed unattainable. The second important emphasis is financial discipline, which Aries usually underestimates. The prophet emphasizes that this sign has powerful potential for big money, but often loses a significant part of it due to impulsive spending, emotional purchases, helping those who do not appreciate it, and also due to the inability to keep accurate records. In 2026, Aries is told directly, 1 million is formed not only through large earnings, but through control, structure, and transparency of cash flow. A clear spending plan, dividing accounts into mandatory, development, and investments, and refusing to make chaotic financial decisions are not just recommendations, but conditions for moving to the next level. Aries should treat every expense as a decision that either brings them closer to large capital or dissolves this potential in trifles. The forecast indicates that those representatives of this sign who begin to keep track of their income and expenses, regularly analyze where their money is going, and eliminate all unnecessary expenses will see how, in a few months, their financial reality will provide space for accumulating large sums. The third vector is Aries' willingness to take risks, but not because of gambling, but because of strategy. Abhigya Anand emphasizes that it is dangerous for this sign to play with easy schemes, dubious investments, and quick earnings without analysis. The forecast makes a clear distinction. Acceptable risk is investing in competencies, technologies, a business model with real demand, expanding one's own business, and entering new markets. Destructive risk is loans for status, investments in things that Aries does not understand. Participation in schemes where there are only promises and no transparent logic. Representatives of this sign are shown that the path to $1 million lies through a combination of courage and cold calculation. Concluding deals where the risk is calculated, where there is a plan A, B, and even C, where each step is tied to numbers, not empty promises. Aries is advised that if, before agreeing to any financial move, they ask themselves 3 specific questions. How much am I investing? What is the minimum realistic result? And what is the worst-case scenario, and can I withstand it? Then every decision will begin to build, rather than destroy, their capital. The 4th level of this prediction concerns the people with whom Aries interacts. The forecast clearly states that the path to big money does not lie through a lonely struggle. On the contrary, the most promising opportunities come through partnerships, alliances, and new connections. It is important for Aries to stop wasting energy on those who constantly complain, drag them down, fear every change, and always explain why it won't work. Abhigya Anand emphasizes, $1 million in 2026 is approaching for those Aries who are consciously building their environment, communicating with entrepreneurs, financial experts, and people who have already achieved results that previously seemed unattainable. This is not about envy or copying, but about learning to think. How decisions are made, how steps are planned, how risks are assessed. Aries are shown that one powerful conversation, one well-chosen person by their side, can replace dozens of chaotic attempts to break through on their own. The simpler and more openly they start talking about their goals and needs, the faster they will find those who will help them strengthen their projects, optimize processes, and reach a new level of income. The 5th focus of the forecast is the ability to scale what already works. Many Aries have a skill or business that brings in a stable but limited income. Freelancing, small business, local services, sales in a specific niche. In 2026, they will be shown that micro-scale is no longer sufficient. Profits will stop growing if Aries tries to do everything themselves, personally taking care of every detail. The prophet points out that the path to $1 million opens up when a representative of this sign ceases to be a universal soldier and begins to build a system, delegating, automating, creating simple, repeatable processes that can be multiplied. This may look like hiring 1 or 2 assistants, moving from individual services to package deals, launching online products, increasing the average check, and expanding the geography of customers. The central idea is simple. Aries will not earn $1 million if they exchange all their time for money. They reach this level only when they build a scalable model where their participation is not required in every transaction. A separate, very specific part of this prediction concerns debt. Anand emphasizes that any ill-considered loans, protracted installments, and the habit of taking in advance what has not yet been earned create a financial hole that steals years from Aries. The forecast states directly, if a representative of this sign sees themselves among those who will approach $1 million in 2026, they should consider debt not as the norm, but as an extraordinary tool that is used only for a very specific plan, capable of clearly returning the investment and multiplying it. Everything else, from cards that are constantly in the red to purchases made just for the sake of impression, should be radically revised. Aries are advised to make a list of all their debt obligations and gradually, step by step, pay them off, while simultaneously creating a safety cushion. This may not seem as appealing as promises of quick money, but it is this foundation that will allow you to work for large sums without fear that any instability will set you back. Another clear element in this forecast is the development of skills. The prophet does not talk about abstract gifts. On the contrary, the emphasis is on very specific skills that have high market value. The ability to sell, negotiate, understand basic financial indicators, analyze the market, build a promotion strategy, work with numbers, and systematize processes. Aries are shown that every month invested in developing these skills in 2026 has a direct connection to real money. This could be training with a strong mentor, participating in practical programs that include not only theory, but also tasks and performance monitoring, independently processing information from verified sources, and training through real projects. The forecast clearly explains the amount of money that comes into Aries' life directly correlates with what the market is actually willing to pay for. The rarer and more useful the combination of their skills, the closer they get to the amount that was once called an unattainable dream. An important part of the prediction concerns Aries' attitude to time. In 2026, this sign is shown a simple but harsh dependence. The more hours are dissolved in aimless procrastination, chaotic activity, and endless consumption of other people's content, the further away their own financial results become. The prophet emphasizes, Aries who wants to make $1 million must learn to divide their days into blocks with a clear priority, creating value that can be converted into money. This means that every day should include at least one significant step toward business development, professional growth, building financial assets, or expanding useful connections. The forecast clearly states that it is not motivational phrases, but daily actions that shape real results. If Aries begins to treat time as their main asset, rather than something infinite, their decisions automatically become more accurate and effective, and their financial trajectory becomes much more rapid. Next comes a section where the prophet talks about health as the foundation for big money. Aries is shown that $1 million does not come into a life where there is no strength to manage it. Constant fatigue, lack of routine, chaotic eating habits, and neglect of rest and recovery make any financial efforts fragile. Therefore, the forecast contains a very clear recommendation. Aries must build a lifestyle where their body and psyche can withstand high loads, but at the same time, regularly replenish their resources. This could be basic physical activity, a clear sleep schedule, avoiding excessive stimulation with caffeine or harmful habits, and introducing practices that help reduce tension and restore concentration. This approach has nothing to do with fashionable trends. It is directly linked to money. The more stable their energy, the more deals, decisions, and projects Aries can implement without burning out. Separately, the prophet draws Aries' attention to how they react to failure. In 2026, this sign is not expected to achieve perfect results, but rather the ability to quickly correct course. The forecast shows that on the way to $1 million, there will be wrong decisions, unsuccessful investments, and projects that will not bring the expected income. The difference between the Aries who will remain at the level of average wealth and the one who will approach large capital lies in how he interprets these situations. If every failure becomes a reason for self-destruction, abandoning goals, escaping into chaos and chaotic spending to calm down, the financial trajectory collapses. If, on the other hand, failure is seen as specific feedback, what exactly didn't work? Where was the mistake in the calculations? Who shouldn't have been dealt with? What conditions need to be changed next time? then every mistake becomes a correction that makes the next step stronger. There is another important detail in this prediction: Aries' attitude toward publicity and reputation. To move toward big money in 2026, it is not enough for them to simply be a good specialist in the shadows. The prophet emphasizes, this sign reveals its financial potential when it is not afraid to declare its results, offer itself to the market openly, showcases, and take responsibility for the promised result. The reputation of a reliable person who keeps their word, fulfills agreements on time, does not disappear, and does not look for excuses, becomes a separate currency that attracts new customers, partners, and opportunities. Aries is directly told, those who do not hide but competently demonstrate their value will receive much more. The final emphasis of this forecast for Aries is an inner readiness to accept big money as the norm, not as a one-time stroke of luck. Anand emphasizes that $1 million does not come when a person simply dreams about it, but when their decisions, habits, social circle, work style, and attitude toward themselves correspond to that level. For Aries, this means abandoning small-minded thinking, the belief that I don't need much, and attempts to squeeze their desires into the framework of other people's limitations. But instead of empty self-suggestion, there is a very firm position here. Income level must be backed up by competence, structure, strategy, and discipline. It is precisely this kind of Aries who combines the determination inherent in their sign with a concrete plan and careful attention to every financial action, who will reach the threshold where the number million ceases to be someone else's story and becomes the logical result of their own decisions in 2026. Taurus. In 2026, Taurus will enter a period when money will cease to be just a safety net and will begin to turn into capital that will work for them every day. In his vision, the Indian prophet Abhigya Anand will single out this representative of the earth element as someone who is capable of making $1 million thanks to sober calculation, consistent actions, and the ability not to succumb to the chaos of other people's emotions. Unlike many other signs, Taurus will not make any sudden financial moves, but will methodically build their own system. And it is this system that will lead to a large sum if they do not stop halfway. At the center of the forecast will be not a random win, but a step-by-step movement through work, investments, growth in the value of their skills, and a competent attitude towards resources. At the beginning of the year, in January and February, Taurus will receive the first signals that it is time to leave the stable but limited comfort zone. The job that has been providing him with a predictable income for years will begin to seem insufficient for the goals that are forming in his mind. They will be faced with a direct choice: either continue to be satisfied with a level that provides for their basic needs, or start building a path to greater wealth. During these winter months, it will be recommended that they carefully review what their income consists of, which areas of activity are most profitable, and where there is untapped potential. If Taurus honestly analyzes their strengths, they will find that they already possess skills that can be sold at a higher price, scaled up, or packaged into separate products or services. March will be the month when Taurus's practical decisions begin to influence their future financial trajectory. The prophet will indicate in his message that it is during this period that representatives of this sign will lay the foundation for a further leap forward. They will begin to write out a detailed financial plan, setting specific goals in numbers rather than general phrases such as "earn more." In March, Taurus will create a clear structure: how much cash they want to have available, how much they will save each month, and what savings and investment tools they will use. If they do not ignore this stage, all events of the year will revolve around this plan as if it were a pivot point. April and May will bring Taurus opportunities to strengthen their status in the professional sphere. Abigail Ananda's prediction will emphasize that representatives of this sign will have a chance to reach a new level of recognition during this period, through a promotion, a transfer to another position, cooperation with stronger clients, or the launch of their own product. The main thing that will distinguish a successful Taurus from a passive one is the willingness to take on more responsibility and not be afraid that income will depend not only on hours worked, but also on results. They will move away from the worked, received model and move towards a format where payment will be linked to the effect they create. This could be a percentage of profits, a share in a project, or a partnership in a business, where their stable nature and ability to see things through to the end will be a key factor for success. The summer of 2026, June, July, and August, will be a period of active work with money as a resource that will multiply. At this time, Taurus will move from simple accumulation to investment. The forecast will clearly indicate that representatives of this sign will stop seeing money as something to be saved just in case, and will begin to view it as a tool that can generate income without their constant presence. They will consider options such as deposits with favorable terms, conservative investment instruments, participation in projects with transparent profit logic, investments in real estate, or the development of their own business. Taurus will not rush into aggressive risks. On the contrary, his path to $1 million will be based on balanced decisions, where each step will be backed up by calculation. During this same summer period, the forecast will indicate an important point. Taurus will learn to refuse expenses that do not bring him closer to his goals. This is not about stinginess, but about filtering. Before every significant purchase, they will ask themselves a simple question. Is this an investment in future income, comfort, health, or just an emotional impulse? Thanks to this approach, in the second half of the year, they will have significantly more free funds for serious steps than expected. The prophet will emphasize the key difference between a Taurus who will reach $1 million and one who will remain at the usual level will be in the ability to cut off what does not serve their long-term goals. September. In this forecast will be described as a month when Taurus will strengthen his strategic ties. It is at this time that he will be more active in reaching out to people who think bigger, have experience managing large sums of money, run businesses, or manage financial flows. The prophet will emphasize that Taurus has powerful potential for accumulation, but his progress toward $1 million will accelerate significantly if he uses the experience of others. In September, he will participate in conversations, meetings, and negotiations that will open his eyes to new ways of earning money, ways to scale up his existing business, models of financial security, and legal optimization. He will build an image of a person who can be trusted, reliable, consistent, punctual, who will not create unnecessary noise, but will simply fulfill agreements. October. In the message for Taurus will be marked as a time of financial structure. During this period, they will move from a general understanding of earn more and spend less to a specific system of accounts, funds, and reserves. They will create separate baskets for current expenses, for investments, for large purchases, for taxes, and for reserves for unforeseen situations. Such detail may not seem appealing on an emotional level, but it will form the basis for serious capital. When every hryvnia has its purpose, money will stop leaking through small, unconscious decisions, and then the transition to large sums will become a matter of time and consistency, not luck. November will be the month when Taurus will test their ability to work with large sums in practice. Some representatives of this sign will receive a significant increase in income during this period. Through a successful deal, a successful project, a large contract, the sale of an asset, or the launch of a new business direction. The prophet will emphasize that it is in November that it will become clear whether Taurus is psychologically ready for $1 million. If they immediately start spending their increased income on status purchases, ostentatious things, or satisfying the expectations of others, the movement towards large capital will slow down. If, on the other hand, they perceive this growth as a signal to strengthen their investment base, expand their assets, increase their safety cushion, and reinvest part of their profits, their trajectory will approach the level predicted by the prophet. December in the forecast for Taurus will look like a month of interim financial results and course corrections. Representatives of this sign will analyze what income they will have for the year, what percentage of this amount they will be able to convert into net capital, what they will invest in, which decisions will prove successful, and which will show where improvement is needed. The prophet will emphasize that the path to $1 million will not end at the calendar deadline. On the contrary, it is those Taurus who take the December reassessment seriously who will have the best chance of achieving the desired amount in the given period. They will see clearly how much they have left to reach their goal, which sources of income should be strengthened, and which activities can be abandoned without losing stability. All predictions for Taurus will be permeated by another theme: attitude towards one's own value. Abhigya Anand will indicate that representatives of this sign will often underestimate their expertise and agree to below-market pay because they value stability over growth. In 2026, this pattern will change. Taurus will learn to set a fair price for their work without fear of losing clients or employers. They will understand a simple pattern. As long as they agree to the minimum, they will attract those who are used to paying little and demanding a lot. When they clearly define their boundaries and defend their value calmly and reasonably, completely different opportunities will appear in their field, less chaotic, more predictable, and much more profitable. A separate part of this forecast will be devoted to debts and financial obligations. Taurus, who will be moving towards $1 million, will gradually free himself from unnecessary loans, installment purchases without real need, and protracted financial dependencies. He will use borrowed funds only where there is an accurate calculation of payback. For example, in business development or in investments with a transparent economy. Everything else will be seen as a burden that distracts from the goal. The prophet will show that the fewer tails Taurus has, the easier it will be for them to make decisions involving large sums of money, and the calmer they will be in response to market fluctuations or changes in the economic environment. The forecast will also emphasize the importance of health for Taurus. Large capital will require endurance, a clear head, and the ability to maintain concentration for long periods of time. Therefore, throughout the year, they will change habits that weaken their resources. They will refuse to overload themselves, establish a sleep routine, and create an adequate balance between work and rest. This will not seem like a trendy topic, but rather a practical necessity. Without stable energy, no plan to increase income will be implemented. Finally, the entire description will have a transparent conclusion. Taurus will have a chance to become one of the wealthiest representatives of the zodiac in 2026, not because he will simply get lucky, but because they will build a clear financial system, strengthen their competencies, work month after month according to a well-thought-out plan, cut out the unnecessary, strengthen their support in the form of savings and investments, and not waste their time on cheap things. This is how they will approach the point where $1 million will cease to be an abstract figure for them and become the logical result of their consistent, well-considered decisions. Gemini. For Gemini, 2026 will be a year when their mind, speech, and ability to work with information will become a direct source of big money. In Abhigya Ananda's prediction, this sign will be described as one of the few that will make $1 million thanks to quick thinking, flexibility, and the ability to find financial opportunities where others see only words and theory. Gemini will rely less on physical labor and more on contacts, analysis, and the ability to bring people, ideas, and resources together. The whole year will be built around one principle. The more accurately they monetize their knowledge and communications, the closer they will be to the highest financial results. At the beginning of the year, in January, Gemini will receive clear signals that the old format of earnings is coming to an end. The usual schemes, where they are paid only by the hour, will cease to satisfy them, and representatives of this sign will feel an internal need to move on to receiving remuneration for ideas, strategies, organization, mediation, and training. At this time, they will review their current sources of income and see where they are being underestimated. Instead of putting up with this, Gemini will set a new financial bar. They will set themselves the task of reaching a completely different level of income, not by increasing their physical workload, but by changing the very model of their work. February will be the month when representatives of this sign begin to structure their own competencies. They will write down what they can do better than others, negotiate, search for the right information, create texts, teach, promote, coordinate. Each of these skills will be considered a separate asset that can be turned into a service, product, or form of cooperation. Gemini will systematize their strengths, not just, I know a lot, but I will sell a specific result, a customized system, a prepared project, a well-thought-out strategy, an assembled team, an implemented process. It is in February that Gemini's new role in the market will take shape, not as a performer of minor tasks, but as a generator and conductor of solutions. March in the forecast for this sign will focus on expanding their circle of contacts. Gemini will not just get to know people, but will form an environment around themselves where ideas, proposals, and projects will constantly circulate. They will initiate conversations, meetings, and online collaborations, in which they will take on the role of connecting different parties, clients and contractors, experts and audiences, investors and initiators of ideas. Abhigya Anand, in his vision for this sign, will call this month the network trigger. It is in March that Gemini will lay the foundation for connections that will later lead to large sums of money. The more actively they engage in the public sphere, through social networks, professional platforms, and specialized events, the more opportunities they will create for themselves. April will force Gemini to think more deeply about how they will manage their money when they have significantly more of it. The prophet will pay attention. This sign will often earn money easily, but will also spend it just as easily, especially on experiences, new impressive things, technology, travel, and education, just in case. In April, a new task will be set: to separate useful investments in development from emotional expenses that simply fill an inner void. It is in this month that Gemini will create their own financial rules. How much will go towards consumption? How much will be set aside? How much will be directed towards projects? And how much will go into reserves? May in the forecast for Gemini will be associated with an intellectual breakthrough. At this time, representatives of this sign will either launch a new line of work related to information or significantly update what they are already doing. For example, they will take their consulting to a higher level, create educational products, form a new format of media activity, and expand their presence in the digital environment. The emphasis will be on the fact that Gemini's money in 2026 will come primarily from the production of meaning, knowledge, strategies, and content, rather than from brute force or mechanical routine. The bolder they are in packaging their knowledge into specific offers, the closer they will be to the level of income predicted. In June, the financial history of the sign will reach a new scale. Some Gemini will sign their first big contracts or enter into partnerships this month, where the amounts will be significantly larger than before. This could be managing a large project, managing a media direction, comprehensive promotion, coordinating a training program, or consulting for business. The main thing is that their role will not be minor, but strategic. The prophet will emphasize that it is in June that Gemini will seriously feel the difference between earnings and financial leverage for the first time. They will see how one decision, one correctly chosen role in a project, can bring more than many years of minor activities. July will be a month of testing their ability to stay focused. Representatives of this sign are prone to spreading themselves too thin, taking on many directions, constantly switching gears, getting excited about new things, and not maximizing what already works. In July, life will force them to choose which projects they will prioritize and which they will give up. If Gemini try to be everywhere at once, their money will be spread too thin. If they focus on 2-3 of the most promising areas, their income will grow exponentially. August, in Anand's vision, will be associated with a new status for Gemini. At this time, the results of their work will become more noticeable to others. They will gain a reputation as specialists who are sought out not for small services, but for comprehensive solutions. They will be able to raise prices, choose clients, and weed out frivolous customers who do not respect their time. At the same time, the issue of responsibility will come to the fore. The higher the fees, the greater the demands on the quality of the result, deadlines, and ethics. Gemini who are ready to maintain this level will begin to enter a completely different financial stratum. September will be a month of financial analysis and strategy adjustment. At this time, representatives of this sign will see which formats of work bring the most income and which take away energy and do not give significant results. The prophet, in his prediction, will strongly recommend that in September, Gemini will have to give up everything that does not correspond to their new financial bar. This will not be easy, as some of their usual activities will give them a sense of security, even if they do not bring in significant money. But reaching $1 million will require a different logic. Instead of filling their time with trifles, Gemini will choose operations that can be scaled up and will have a significant impact on their income. October in this forecast will be a month of active growth in financial flows. During this period, projects launched earlier will yield tangible financial results, regular payments, bonuses, interest, premiums, and dividends from participation in partnerships. Gemini will see that their ability to think quickly and work with information is already turning into a system where money comes in not only for individual work, but as payment for previously created structures. The prophet will emphasize that this will be a time when it is important not to lose your head over the growth in income. If Gemini perceive this growth as a normal result of their work and not as a one-time stroke of luck, they will consolidate a new level. November's prediction for Gemini will focus on long-term investments. This month, they will face a choice: to convert most of their increased income into consumption or to create a foundation that will provide for them in the years to come. The strongest representatives of the sign will direct a significant part of their resources into things that can preserve and multiply value. These may be serious educational programs with a clear return on investment, investment portfolios, business assets, tools, and technologies that will allow them to scale their activities. In November, The foundation for that million will be laid, not just as an amount in an account, but as the total value of the assets that Gemini will own and manage. December, in the annual picture, will be the month when Gemini will realize the real scope of what they have done. They will see how their attitude to money, work, their own time and contacts has changed. If at the beginning of the year they think in terms of salary, small side jobs, and one-time projects, by the end of 2026, they will see a different picture. Several strong sources of income, a network of professional connections, clearly structured finances, and a strategy for the future. Anand's prediction will emphasize that representatives of this sign who go through all these stages seriously, rather than superficially, will come as close as possible to the amount they previously did not even dare to call their own. A separate part of the forecast for Gemini will be devoted to the mistakes they will avoid. They will be advised not to get involved in projects that lack transparent financial logic, agree to participate for the sake of company, or invest in something they do not understand simply because they are afraid of missing an opportunity. Gemini will be successful when their quick thinking is backed up by specific calculations, legally clear agreements, contracts, and written commitments. The prophet will emphasize that in 2026, it will be dangerous for this sign to trust only words, even if they sound very attractive. Its strength will lie in checking facts, calculating, and recording conditions. An equally important element will be Gemini's attitude toward their own voice and public position. The more actively they speak, write, share knowledge, and demonstrate practical cases, the more people will perceive them as an authority. And it is authority in their niche that will attract wealthy clients, serious partners, people who will not haggle over every penny but will pay for results. Gemini who remain silent and leave their potential in the shadows will risk remaining at the level of jack-of-all-trades, masters, who are constantly underestimated. Those who openly declare their competencies, moving from general phrases to specific proposals, will reach the upper financial segment. An important place in the forecast will also be occupied by Gemini's internal readiness for large numbers. They will learn not to be afraid of large sums, large contracts, and large responsibilities. If earlier, even the thought of $1 million was perceived as something from someone else's life, then in the course of the year, this figure will gradually become a working one, as an intermediate goal, as a natural result of scaled activity, as a logical conclusion of a combination of knowledge, connections, and properly organized work. Gemini will get used to operating with larger budgets, planning projects with a different financial coefficient, and not counting every step in small units. In summary, according to Abhigya Anand's prediction, the year for Gemini will look like a path from chaotic exchange of information for small amounts to systematic monetization of intellect, communications, and contacts on a scale that will allow them to reach one of the highest financial levels among the zodiac signs. Their main tool in 2026 will not be power, random luck, or outside help, but the ability to think quickly, act in a structured manner, speak convincingly, build strategies, and turn all of this into clear financial results month after month. This is how Gemini will approach the $1 million mentioned in the prophecy. Cancer. In 2026, Cancer will reach a financial level that it previously did not even allow itself to aspire to. In Abhigya Ananda's vision, this sign will appear as the one who will get the chance to make $1 million not through aggressive risks or accidental luck, but through the proper handling of money, family resources, property, contacts, and their own sensitivity to change. Cancer will combine caution with sober decisions and gradually transform their need for security into a very concrete financial result. January in Cancer's life will focus on organizing the money they already have. They will begin to sort out everything related to income and expenses, salary, side jobs, help from family, loans, debts to friends, old obligations that everyone has long forgotten but still weigh heavily on them. At this time, they will draw up their first clear financial map, what they actually own, what they owe, which regular payments take up the lion's share of their budget, and where they can cut costs without losing quality of life. It is in January that Cancer will realize that as long as everything is kept in their head, money constantly disappears. As soon as everything is converted into numbers, on paper or in a spreadsheet, the situation ceases to be chaotic. February will focus on how Cancer will earn money. They will be faced with the question, will they continue to rely on only one type of income? Or will they start to create several parallel sources? This month, they will see areas where their experience, care, patience, and listening skills may be underappreciated if they stay in one place, and areas where those same qualities will be paid significantly more. They will begin to consider options, changing positions, moving to another company, starting their own business in the field of services, care, psychological support, working with people, family services, gastronomy, educational or consulting formats. February will be the month when Cancer will make a decision to remain in the role of an executor or to move towards a position where his name and reputation will start to bring in additional money. March will force Cancer to choose between the role of a quiet but overworked employee and the position of a person who sets the rules of the game for himself. At this time, they will be offered additional tasks, responsibilities, and immersion in a routine that offers no prospects. If they simply agree, their income will remain at a level that is only sufficient for basic needs. If, in March, they begin to refuse what does not make financial sense and simultaneously look for opportunities for better paid work, the year will unfold in a completely different way. It is during this period that they will feel that their time has a different price, and the only question is whether they themselves agree to this new price. April, in the forecast for Cancer, will be associated with the theme of family and shared resources. For many representatives of this sign, this month will see the activation of issues such as shared budget, distribution of expenses, support for parents or children, and participation in family purchases, from household appliances to real estate. Cancer will understand that they can either continue to carry everyone and everything on their shoulders, silently covering the gaps, or establish clear rules: who is responsible for what contributions are made, and what the family's financial priorities are. Those who start talking about money openly and calmly in April, negotiating and recording agreements, will find it much easier to save and invest in the future. May will be the month when Cancer will touch on the topic of their own property, housing, land, repairs, moving, renting, buying and selling. This sign has a strong need for their own place, and in May, this need will be closely intertwined with their financial plan. Some will consider buying their first home, some will consider expanding their living space, some will consider moving for better conditions, and some will consider renting out real estate. The prophet will emphasize in his vision that decisions related to property will be one of the key elements on Cancer's path to $1 million, where they think decades ahead, not just the next few months, and where they don't agree to unfavorable terms just because they're afraid of losing something. Their capital will start to grow much faster. June will shift the focus to personal skills that Cancer will monetize. At this time, they will begin to clearly see what they can do that few others can. Create an atmosphere of trust, understand people's emotions, support, organize space, work with details, care for children or the elderly, cook, and advise on issues that require sensitivity. The question will arise: should they leave it at the level of just character traits, or turn it into a profession, service, or business model. The more specifically Cancer formulates what exactly they will be paid for, the closer they will be to earnings that exceed anything they have had before. July 2026 will be a test of Cancer's financial limits. It is during this month that loved ones may ask for loans, offer to invest in an idea, or hint at the help that Cancer has always given without thinking twice. If they slip back into savior mode, the money that should have been saved will go toward other people's problems, which often won't even be solved. If, however, in July he begins to set clear boundaries, help only within the budget, only to those who have a plan, only when it does not jeopardize his own stability, his financial foundation will remain intact. The prediction will emphasize that Cancer's path to $1 million requires him to stop paying for other people's irresponsibility. August will be a time when this sign will demonstrate its ability to manage large sums of money. At this time, bonuses, large payments, debt repayments, lucrative orders, additional fees, and the first significant profits from investments, rentals, or the sale of something valuable may come. The main question for Cancer in August is how they will manage these funds. If they immediately start fulfilling all their long-standing desires, buying things they have dreamed of for a long time, but which will not affect their income, they will only experience a short emotional high. If they divide these sums, leaving some for enjoyment, sending some to replenish their reserves, and investing some, August will be a turning point when they feel the difference between simply earning a lot and truly accumulating capital. September in this forecast will be a period of strategic thinking. Cancer will begin to look at their year not as a single event, but as a line. How much they have already earned, how much they have managed to save, what is working best now, and what does not make sense. They will analyze whether all activities are worth continuing, whether it makes sense to close something that does not bring income, freeing up time for more promising areas. This month, it will be important for them to answer honestly. Am I earning where I am valued? Or am I just sticking to habit? Those Cancers who are able to abandon dead work formats in September will have the opportunity to restructure their time in favor of what will bring them closer to big capital. October will reveal the theme of publicity and reputation. During this period, representatives of this sign will see that their new level of income depends on how people talk about them, how they are recommended, and how their reliability is assessed. They will work so that every completed project and every satisfied client or partner leaves behind not just a thank you, but a real basis for future orders, recommendations, repeat collaborations, and reviews. Cancer will become synonymous with stability and order in financial matters for those around them. If they promise something, they will deliver. If they take on a task, they will see it through to the end. Such a reputation will attract financially strong people for whom a word is as good as a contract. November in Cancer's financial picture will be the month when they begin to see the total value of what they have. Not only money on their card or cash, but also savings, real estate, equipment, tools they use at work, intellectual products they have created, their client base, and their reputation. The prophet will emphasize that at this time, Cancer will realize for the first time that his financial weight is much greater than the bare figures in his account. It is in November that he will be able to reassess how close he is to $1 million in total terms if he adds up all his assets. This realization will give them additional confidence and force them to take a more responsible approach to each new decision. December will be a period of putting what has already been built in order and planning the next step. Cancer will put all accounts in order, pay off small debts, record the financial results of the year, and chart a course for the coming periods. This month, they will see which steps led to the greatest growth in which months they spent too much, where they agreed to unfavorable terms, and where, on the contrary, they defended themselves and won. In December, they will no longer act as a person who fears tomorrow, but as the owner of a system they trust. A separate section of the prophecy for Cancer will be devoted to how he will deal with risks. It will be clearly stated that the path to $1 million will not require him to go all in. He will be expected to take a measured approach to risk. He will only invest money where there is a clear mechanism for return and clear reasoning, rather than just the promise of quick riches. Cancer will avoid schemes that raise even the slightest doubt, and this will protect him from losing large sums of money. Instead, he will support opportunities where he can see transparent figures, real cases, and clear conditions. Another important aspect is Cancer's attitude towards his own work. In 2026, he will gradually move away from the role of someone who constantly works in the red for himself, overachieves, but is shy about raising his price. Throughout the year, they will consistently increase the cost of their services, work, and products, bringing them in line with market levels and even higher if they offer more than the average standard. They will learn to talk about money calmly, without tension or guilt when naming a price. This will also change the quality of his clients. Those who appreciate his contribution will remain, while those who are only looking for cheap options will leave. A special place in Abhigya Ananda's forecast will be given to the topic of Cancer's emotional stability. He will be advised that large sums of money will require a more stable state of mind. He will react less to short-term fluctuations, will not despair over one-time failures, and will not relax too much when experiencing temporary successes. He will treat money as a process rather than a chaotic set of events. Thanks to this, his decisions will cease to be emotional. He will not buy things to calm himself down, nor will he refuse opportunities simply out of fear. As a result, Cancer's journey to $1 million in 2026 will look like the consistent path of a person who puts his financial life in order, protects himself from unnecessary obligations, builds several sources of income, manages their assets wisely, changes their relationship with their family in financial matters, learns to say no where they previously agreed automatically, and builds a reputation as a reliable partner. It is the combination of these steps, spread out over all the months, that will lead Cancer to the point where, at a certain moment, they will see that their financial scale already corresponds to the level referred to in the prophecy as $1 million. Leo. In 2026, Leo will enter a period when its natural desire for recognition will translate into very concrete financial results. In Abhigya Ananda's prophecy, this sign will appear as the one who will combine ambition, charisma, bold decisions, and tough financial calculations in order to get closer to $1 million, not at the level of fantasy, but at the level of real numbers. Leo will not settle for narrow boundaries, small money, and grey conditions. He will gradually build a different standard of living for himself, in which high income will be a logical continuation of his style of thinking and behavior. At the beginning of the year, in January, Leo will be faced with the need to take an honest look at his financial foundation. They will already have a certain level of income, perhaps even above average. But their inner feeling will tell them that this is not enough for the scale they consider their own. In January, they will analyze where exactly they are undervaluing their time, in which projects they are working below their real value, and which responsibilities they are taking on only out of fear of losing something. A decision will emerge. In 2026, Leo will not settle for the role of a convenient executor. They will take the position of someone who sets the rules, prices their influence, and sets other price tags. February will reinforce the theme of personal branding. This month, Leo will understand that the source of big money for him is not just his profession, but a combination of his profession and the image that others see. If he works for someone else, he will build a reputation as a key figure, without whom it is difficult to imagine the result. If they have their own business, they will begin to present themselves as the face of the brand, become more public, more active on social media, emphasize their competencies, and demonstrate results. It is in February that they will take the first steps towards making their name attract money on its own, through recommendations, requests, and offers of cooperation. March will be a month of sober choices in financial matters. By this point, Leo will most likely have several activities: his main job, side projects, and ideas that have been sitting in a drawer for a long time. Throughout March, they will evaluate each direction using simple criteria: how much money it brings in, how much time it takes, and what prospects it opens up. Some of the things that don't bring enough return will be cut off. Instead, he will increase the amount of time he spends on things that can be scaled up. For example, high-value services, leadership roles, and business areas where his decisions determine the profitability of the entire system and, therefore, his remuneration. In April, the topic of income growth will be combined with the ability to negotiate for oneself. Leo will encounter situations where they will try to keep them at the old level of pay, even if they are already doing more than their position or contract requires. If he could remain silent before, in April, he will enter into negotiations with clear arguments, specific results, profits generated, and the responsibility he actually bears. He will prepare for such conversations in advance, gathering facts, figures, and feedback. At this point, an important turning point will occur. Leo will stop fearing that, if I ask for more, I will lose everything, and will begin to perceive an increase in their financial demands as the norm. May will be a month of immersion in big goals. During this period, Leo will formulate figures for himself that a year ago might have seemed excessive: how much he wants to earn per month, what passive income will suit him, what amount he is ready to consider an intermediate milestone on the way to $1 million. They will break these goals down into steps: which projects will give them growth, which skills they need to develop, which people they need around them. May will not be a time for fantasizing. On the contrary, it will be a period when dreams are translated into Excel spreadsheets, tables, plans, and visual maps, where each item will have a deadline and responsibility. June for Leo will be associated with the theme of team and environment. A prophet from India will point out that it is at this time that the representative of this sign will feel that playing alone limits his income. He will either assemble his own team or join another, where his role will not be secondary, but central. There will be assistants, partners, and specialists to whom routine tasks can be delegated. Leo will learn to give up some of their tasks in order to free up space for where their charisma, strategy, and ability to influence people are really needed. This will be a critical moment. As long as he does everything himself, his income will remain limited. As soon as a structure appears, turnover will begin to grow. July will push for tighter control of expenses. This sign loves quality, comfort, and status symbols. But in 2026, it will be forced to look at where it is spending too much just for the sake of appearances. In July, Leo will review contracts, subscriptions, and habits of spending on impulsive purchases and expensive but unnecessary entertainment. They will not give up pleasures, but will begin to separate what really enhances their resources from what simply eats up money. At this stage, they will form a rule. Part of their income will definitely go towards pleasures, but a certain percentage will go towards savings, investments, and development. This will not be strict economizing. It will be strategic selection. August will be associated with stepping onto a bigger stage for Leo. If he works in the public sphere, he will be invited more often to interviews, speeches, and joint projects. If he is involved in business, his influence in the company will grow. His opinion will be listened to, and he will be entrusted with complex negotiations and important deals. At this time, Leo will receive their first truly large fees for results, not for hours worked. They will realize that the more responsibility they take on and withstand, the higher their income will be. In September, the focus will shift to investment decisions. Leo will be faced with a choice: to leave money in the account, keeping it immobile, or to start working with instruments that can multiply capital. There will be interest in real estate, business shares, conservative financial instruments, and participation in projects with a transparent economy. They will not take leaps into the unknown. Instead, they will consult with experts, analyze, and study experience. September will be the month when Leo begins to form an asset base, rather than just counting income and expenses. It is this base that will later bring them closer to a seven-figure sum. October, in the forecast for this sign, will be a time of increased personal influence on financial processes. Leo will participate in negotiations concerning budgets, profit distribution, and partnership terms. He will not be a silent observer. He will form a clear position, set his conditions, and learn to say no to deals that underestimate his share. There will be moments when his firm position will determine whether he will receive significantly more in the future or remain on salary. Those Leos who are not afraid to defend their financial share in October will be able to dramatically change the trajectory of their income. November will lead to the topic of long-term strategy. Leo will already have certain results: income growth, first investments, changes in status. During this period, they will soberly assess what works best. Some projects will show that they have exhausted themselves. Others, on the contrary, will demonstrate the potential for scaling up significantly. Leo will make plans not for 1 year, but for several: how he sees his business, his role, his assets, his level of freedom. He will form the concept of financial support for himself, so that even if circumstances change, he will have enough assets not to return to the petty struggle for survival. December will be the month when Leo will see how much his attitude toward money, status, and his own capabilities has changed. They will compare themselves to how they were at the beginning of the year. In January, with doubts about whether they have the right to demand more, with fear of losing stability. In December, with a different sense of self, where large sums will no longer be frightening, but will be perceived as the natural result of well-organized work. In December, he will calculate the total value of everything he has: savings, investments, property, business, brand. It will then become clear that the distance to $1 million has significantly decreased. In this financial picture of 2026, there will be several more critically important lines for Leo. One of them is his attitude to time. Leo will stop wasting hours on things that bring neither money, reputation, nor development. He will clearly understand that every day must include actions that move him forward: negotiations, work on key projects, development, strengthening relationships with important people. Everything that does not bring a return will gradually be eliminated. The second line is discipline. Despite his fiery nature, in 2026, Leo will learn to finish what he starts. This will also be reflected in his finances. There will be no unfinished projects, postponed launches, or endless preparation without a start. They will see that every product that is not launched, every idea that is not brought to fruition, is thousands lost. This thought will force them to become tougher on their own procrastination. The third is health and energy. Leo will begin to understand that big money requires a different level of endurance. He will invest time and resources in his routine, nutrition, recovery, and eliminating bad habits. Not because it is fashionable, but because he will see a direct connection. When he has more energy, he has more deals, more ideas, and higher income. His physical condition will cease to be a background factor. It will become one of the key financial factors. The fourth is emotional stability. Leo will not allow himself to fly into euphoria with every big payout and fall into drama with every problem. He will develop a cool side to his character, which will be able to count and not lose his head, either from success or from temporary failures. This will allow them to make decisions calmly, without burning bridges or spending money in response to stress. All predictions for Leo in the context of $1 million in 2026 will boil down to one clear idea. This sign will reach the seven-figure level not through a random win, but through a systematic change in position. They will raise their own value in the market, build a personal brand, increase responsibility, and monetize their influence. They will learn to count, invest, give up the unnecessary, work with a team, and see themselves as someone who is entitled to big numbers. It is this combination, ambition plus discipline, charisma plus calculation, publicity plus structure, that will bring Leo as close as possible to the $1 million mentioned in the words of the prophet from India. Virgo. For Virgo, 2026 will be the year when a cool head, analytics, and the ability to see details will turn into not just a stable income, but serious capital. In the vision of the Indian prophet Abhigya Anand, Virgo will stand out as a sign that will be able to make $1 million not through high-profile risks, but through a well-thought-out system, clear standards, and flawless work with numbers. They will cease to be the quiet, grey cardinal of someone else's success and begin to monetize their own competence, turning their orderliness, structure, and self-discipline into money that will work for them every day. January for Virgo will mean a financial audit without illusions. She will bring to the surface everything that has been put off for years: old debt obligations, unprofitable subscriptions, irrelevant projects that take more resources than they give. During this period, Virgo will paint the first truly honest picture: how much she actually earns, how much she really has left after all her expenses, and how much money simply drains away in small things. This is where she will begin to understand that her main strength lies not in saving on coffee, but in reformatting her entire financial model, from "I'm holding on" to "I'm growing." In February, professional status will come to the fore. Virgo will ask questions that she previously avoided. Does her current salary correspond to the level of responsibility and quality of the results she produces? Is it worth continuing to complete dozens of tasks for average pay when her skills have long allowed her to aspire to another segment? This month, she will consider options for moving to a new level: promotion, change of position, transfer to another company, or entering the market as an independent specialist or consultant. February will be the point where Virgo begins to formulate a new price for herself, not what they will give, but what she will determine based on her real value. March will bring a focus on specialization. Virgo will refuse to spread herself thin in small, low-paying areas, and will narrow her focus to those areas where her expertise can bring high income: analytics, auditing, process management, financial control, building regulations, implementing systems, optimizing costs, and working with quality. She will consciously raise the bar. Instead of "I do everything a little," she will say, "I do it in a way that few others can." It is in March that she will lay the foundation for each hour of her work to be paid many times more than before. April will force Virgo to pay attention to processes, not just results. During this period, she will analyze how her work routine is organized, what can be automated, what can be delegated, what can be combined into blocks so as not to waste time. She will begin to build her own checklists, templates, and standards that will allow her to earn more while expending less energy. April will lay the foundation for scaling. When everything that can be repeated is put into the system, Virgo will be able to work not more, but more expensively and more efficiently. In May, the topic of personal branding will unfold, but in a purely pragmatic format. Virgo will not become a high-profile public figure, but instead, her name will begin to function as a mark of quality. People will turn to her for work that is done without mistakes. She will not present a beautiful picture, but rather specific cases, optimized processes, improved performance indicators, and budget savings. Because of this, clients or employers will appear on the horizon who are willing to pay not for hours, but for accuracy, speed, and guaranteed results. May will be the month when Virgo's reputation begins to convert into money. June will be associated with negotiations and terms of cooperation. At this time, Virgo will stop signing up for projects where the scope, deadlines, payment, and responsibilities are not defined. Before each new agreement, she will ask specific questions, record the agreements in writing, and establish mechanisms to protect her own interests. For many, this will look like principledness, but it is precisely this that will allow her to avoid unpaid hours, endless revisions, and vague expectations that have always eaten away at her potential profits. June will make Virgo's financial relationships clearer and, therefore, her income more predictable. July will highlight the topic of living expenses and spending on comfort. During this period, she will review everything related to everyday financial decisions: rent or mortgage, transportation, eating habits, small purchases. Virgo will not just save, but optimize, finding high-quality but reasonably priced solutions, transferring part of the expenses to more profitable formats, getting rid of everything that does not add health, productivity, or joy. July will give them a sense of control. They will understand that every little thing in the budget serves the overall goal of accumulating significant capital. August will bring the first clear confirmation that the new financial strategy is working. Virgo will begin to see the difference between what she received before and what she is receiving now. Project payments, bonuses, additional payments for putting things in order or for saving the company money. At this time, the first serious reserve may appear in the account, which will not disappear to zero at the end of the month. She will create a separate financial circuit, savings that will not be touched unless absolutely necessary, and that will begin to form the basis of a future million. September will be a month of analysis and course correction for Virgo. They will review which decisions had the greatest financial impact, which areas of work proved to be unsuccessful, which clients or partners are worth further cooperation, and which only create chaos. Based on this analysis, they will abandon everything that does not correspond to the new level of income and make room for projects with a larger paycheck. September will be the month when Virgo begins to think not in terms of busy or not, but in terms of what financial sense does each commitment make. In October, the topic of investment will come to the fore. Virgo will no longer limit herself to just keeping money in her account. They will study the available tools, consult with experts, and test small investments to understand what suits them. Conservative financial products, participation in business, real estate, intellectual assets that can be monetized multiple times. Their approach will remain cautious, but no longer paralyzed by fear. October will be the point when Virgo begins to perceive money as a resource that should work, not lie idle. November will shift the focus to the topic of workload and limits. At this time, she will feel where she is overloading herself, even if she is earning well. There will be a realization that the path to big capital should not break her health or nervous system. Virgo will redistribute tasks, introduce clear working hours, and leave time for recovery. Her schedule will include breaks, pauses, and space for thinking, not just for doing. This change will allow her to avoid burning out halfway through and to maintain the pace necessary to earn large sums. December will end the year with a sense of structure. At this stage, Virgo will no longer have a chaotic set of income and expenses, but a coherent system, several sources of income, clear financial rules, a formed reserve, first investments, weeded out useless clients, and a strengthened professional image. She will see completely different numbers in her accounts and assets than in previous years. Most importantly, she will understand that this result is not accidental. It will grow out of her decisions, standards, and ability to remain true to her own systematic approach. Beyond the monthly dynamics, the forecast for Virgo for 2026 will include several fundamental financial principles that she will learn. The first is that money is not managed by talent, but by rules. Virgo will create internal rules for herself. What percentage of her income she always sets aside, what she considers an investment, how much she is willing to spend on education, and how much on entertainment. She will stop spending money based on emotions and will begin to stick to these rules, even when her mood and circumstances push her to do the opposite. The second principle is no, as a financial tool. Virgo will learn to say no to extra work that pays below the norm, to clients who miss deadlines and do not respect her time, to acquaintances who constantly ask her to do something as a favor, to projects without a clear economic rationale. This no will not be rude. It will become a boundary that protects her time, energy, and resources so that they can be invested in what brings real financial growth. The third principle is scale through structure, not chaos. In 2026, Virgo will realize that to reach 1 million, it is not enough to simply work harder. It will be necessary to build a system, repeatable processes, clear work stages, standardized products or services that can be multiplied. It will move from one-off tasks to formats that can be sold not once, but many times. Ready-made solutions, service packages, long-term contracts, subscription models. The fourth principle is precision in communication. Virgos will start talking about money directly and calmly. They will announce the cost before starting work, will not apologize for their rates, and will not agree to add a little more, but without extra payment. In 2026, her language in business matters will become clearer, her calculations more transparent, and her terms unambiguous. This will sharply reduce the risk of conflicts and misunderstandings, as well as attract those who value clarity and are willing to pay for professionalism. The fifth principle is cold analysis instead of fear. Any financial opportunity, a new niche, partnership, or investment will not cause panic in Virgo. She will break down each proposal into numbers. How much is being invested? What are the possible results? What are the risks? How long will it take? What will happen in the worst-case scenario? If the numbers don't add up, Virgo will refuse without regret. If logic is on her side, she will move forward, even if she feels a little anxious emotionally. All of this will lead to Virgo approaching 1 million by the end of 2026, not through a single stroke of luck, but through a comprehensive financial transformation. Her income will grow, her expenses will become manageable. Her assets will become tangible, and her decisions will be well considered. She will stop working for other people's systems and start building her own. And it is this very system, built on clarity, meticulousness, analytics, and consistent steps from month to month, that will bring Virgo into the ranks of those whom the prophet from India will refer to as the wealthiest representatives of the zodiac. Libra. For Libras, 2026 will be unlike any previous financial period. It is at this time that their ability to negotiate, build honest deals, see both sides of any issue, and create a fair balance between take and give will begin to directly translate into big money. In the vision of the Indian prophet Abhigya Anand, this sign will be among the contenders for $1 million because it will combine three things: profitable partnerships, a competent legal and financial base, and conscious management of one's image. Libras will not move towards wealth through force or chaotic risk-taking. They will build for themselves the image of a person who is profitable to deal with, reliable, correct, predictable, and at the same time, ambitious. Everything related to money will be viewed through the prism of agreements, contracts, and clearly defined conditions. Thanks to this, their financial relationships will no longer be based on verbal trust and will begin to rely on documented reality, where there are fewer losses and more protected interests. January will be a starting point for Libras, when they will sort out all their existing financial ties. They will review all existing contracts, verbal agreements, working partnerships, side jobs, and long-standing obligations. Where the terms are unclear, vague, or frankly disadvantageous, Libras will initiate a review. They will start the year by asking themselves, who will actually bring in money? Who takes up time and nerves without compensating for anything? In January, there will be the first cut of unnecessary people and formats of interaction for which they are paid too little or not at all. February will bring clarity to the issue of personal income. Libras will calculate how much their hour, day, or week is worth, taking into account the actual amount of effort and responsibility. They will stop naming amounts by eye and start relying on specific calculations: how much the client receives thanks to their work, what value their participation creates, and what risks they take. Based on this, they will form a new system of pricing and payment procedures. February will be the month when Libras stop agreeing to amounts that do not correspond to either their level or their role in the process. March will show that Libras' main financial resource is not only their professional skills, but also their ability to build partnerships. At this time, they will begin to consciously gather around them people with whom they can do joint projects: lawyers, financiers, technical specialists, creators, marketers, and entrepreneurs. Libras will connect those who have ideas with those who have resources and will take the position of mediator, coordinator, and co-owner of the project. The difference in 2026 will be that for this mediation, they will no longer be helping as friends, but will receive a clearly defined share of the profits. April will be the first financially demanding month when Libras will feel that they are being involved in important decisions. They will participate in negotiations where prices, budgets, commissions, and interest rates will be determined. In these conversations, they will take the position of someone who protects not only the interests of the other side, but also their own. They will demand adequate compensation for each new responsibility. It is in April that many representatives of this sign will refuse to work for the idea for the first time, and will begin to treat any participation as a contribution that must be paid for. May will reinforce the theme of image. Libras will begin to consciously shape their public image in the professional sphere: social media profiles, portfolios, available examples of work, case studies, and reviews. They will make sure that they are associated not with frivolity, but with reliability, aesthetics, and competence. Working with them will be seen as a sign of status. As a result, they will be approached not only by those looking for a cheap solution, but also by those who need a partner who will raise the bar for quality and take on some of the burden of reputation. In June, Libras will begin to divide their income into categories: guaranteed, variable, and passive. They will realize that only a stable rate will limit their potential and will look for formats where fees depend on results, royalties, percentages, or shares. At this time, they will be able to get involved in projects that offer a share of the profits rather than just a one-time payment. Each such agreement will bring them closer to the point where their total income across all areas will reach a new level. July will touch on the topic of expenses, but not in terms of petty savings, but in terms of financial lifestyle. Libras will look at how much money goes into making an impression, things bought not for themselves, but for the approval of others, events they attend solely for status, expenses that leave neither memories nor benefits. They will begin to consciously cut back on everything that contributes to an empty image and invest more in serious tools, education, technology, services that simplify work, personal branding, legal and financial support. July will create the first tangible reserve of funds that were previously always lacking. August will bring a turning point in the form of major negotiations or a key agreement. Libras will receive a cooperation offer where the stakes will be significantly higher than anything that has come before. This could be a one-year contract, participation in a large-scale project, the launch of their own product line, or a partnership with a strong company or personality. It is important that Libras will no longer agree to play a decorative role in August. They will set conditions: share, percentage, voting rights, clear framework of responsibilities. A more profitable format of cooperation chosen during this period will make the second half of the year financially rich. September will highlight the need for legal protection. Libras will turn to a specialist to check all contracts, formalize new terms of cooperation, register activities, or structure their business. This will not be a formality, but a tool for protecting large sums of money. Clearly defined rights, responsibilities, payment procedures, and penalties for violating the terms and conditions will all reduce risks and prevent anyone from taking advantage of their trust or desire to maintain good relations at the expense of money. September will be the month when Libras stop fearing formality and see it as an ally. October will push the boundaries of what Libras consider normal in terms of income. At this stage, they will already have significantly larger sums than at the beginning of the year, and will no longer be surprised by fees that previously seemed fantastic. They will begin to plan their expenses and investments based not on how much is left until payday, but on how much they will need to convert into assets in a few months. In October, there will be a clear sense that moving toward $1 million is not a dream, but a matter of correctly constructed mathematics. How much each area will earn, how surpluses will be redistributed, and where the freed-up resources will be invested. November will focus on the long term. Libras will understand that one-off deals, even large ones, do not provide the stability needed for true wealth. They will begin to form long-term contracts, sign agreements for several years, and include payment indexation, performance bonuses, and options for expanding cooperation. They will choose not only what brings a lot now, but also what will ensure a strong, guaranteed flow in the future. It is in November that they will lay the foundation for their million to consist not of random bursts of income, but of predictable flows. December will allow Libras to look back and see how much their financial landscape has changed. They will calculate their total annual income, savings, the value of assets acquired during the year, and the amount of payments fixed for the future. Many will be surprised. Figures that once seemed unattainable will turn out to be not theoretical, but real. At the same time, the main discovery will not be in the amount, but in the fact that this level will be fixed in the mind as a new standard. Libras will no longer agree to go below it. In parallel with the monthly changes in 2026, Libras will learn several key financial principles that will become the foundation for the path to $1 million. The first principle is the balance between personal interests and the interests of others. They will stop working exclusively for the sake of peace, or so that no one is offended, if it means financial damage to themselves. They will remain diplomats, but diplomats who know how to set conditions so that everyone benefits, and not so that they themselves remain in the red. The second principle is the clear monetization of their own taste and sense of form. Libras have a natural ability to make everything beautiful, harmonious, and comfortable. In 2026, this will no longer be a free bonus. Their contribution to the design, structure, communication, visual design, and style of projects will be separately evaluated and paid for. They will finally see that what seems self-evident to them is a valuable service to others. The third principle is the rejection of uncertainty. Libras will eliminate any grey areas from their financial lives: unknown amounts, unagreed terms, vague tasks. They will not start work until everything has been agreed and recorded. This position may seem harsh to some, but it is precisely this that will protect them from unclear debts, lost money, and forgotten payments. The fourth principle is the strategic choice of partners. Libras will finally stop trying to please everyone. They will choose people and companies with whom they can build long-term, transparent, mutually beneficial relationships. Those who manipulate, delay payments, play on feelings of guilt, or try to lower prices will simply be removed from their circle. Their financial space will be reserved for those who respect time, competence, and agreements. The fifth principle is to perceive large sums as a working tool, not as something too bold. Libras will gradually get used to contracts with large numbers, projects with serious budgets, and negotiations where tens and hundreds of thousands are discussed, not hundreds. They will not diminish their value just because the amount sounds too loud. On the contrary, they will understand that their participation on such a scale is a natural step. Libra's path to $1 million in 2026 will not be like a game of chance or a lottery. It will be a consistent building of financial relationships where every deal is transparent, every partner is understandable, every contract protects rather than undermines, and every amount has logic. It is this logic, not loud, but very strong, that will lead Libras to be called one of the richest representatives of the zodiac of their time. Scorpio. In 2026, it will be Scorpio who will rewrite their own financial reality from scratch, without sentimentality and without regret for old schemes that no longer provide any growth. Money will cease to be a source of fear, tension, or internal struggle for them. It will become an instrument of control, influence, and personal freedom. According to the prophet Abhigya Anand, this sign will be among the select few who will have the potential to become millionaires through decisive steps, tough decisions, and the ability to see what others do not. Scorpio will not ask life for a chance. He will create opportunities for himself, and 2026 will show this very clearly, month after month. Already in January, Scorpio will behave not as a person who plans something, but as a strategist who enters the battlefield with a clear map. They will begin with a careful analysis of what they have now: work, projects, debts, loans, old obligations, hidden agreements, unprofitable subscriptions, and long-standing temporary decisions that have been dragging on for years. In January, they will ruthlessly cut off everything that drains energy and money, but does not give real returns. Dishonest partners, friendly services that no one ever paid for, and pseudo-projects with the eternal status of later will also come under attack. At the beginning of the year, Scorpio will tell themselves, from now on, every hour, every agreement, every collaboration will either bring them closer to big money or be eliminated. In February, Scorpios will begin to work with their own financial power on a deeper level. The question, how much is he worth, will no longer be abstract. They will calculate how much they bring to the company, client, or partner, what level of responsibility they carry, and what risks they take. Based on this, they will form new financial requirements. Where they have not raised his pay for a long time, he will enter into negotiations and set new conditions. Where a raise is impossible, he will prepare himself for a move to more lucrative positions, other companies, other markets, his own projects. In February, Scorpio will stop agreeing to the role of irreplaceable but cheap. March will be a month of shadow auditing of the people around them. Scorpios will look very closely at who is really helping them move toward their financial goals and who is just using their resources, attention, skills, connections, time. They will sever ties that have long since turned into a one-sided game, where they always come to the rescue, provide backup, work above and beyond, and in return receive only promises and empty words. In March, their circle will narrow, but it will become much more qualitative. Those who remain will be people with whom they can move forward in complex but financially strong situations, rather than just discussing problems. This is the month when Scorpios will refuse to be a source of energy for other people's failures. April will open the first serious financial maneuver. During this period, Scorpios will enter one or two key areas that have the potential for large earnings. These may be complex deals, niches with high margins, projects where payments are tied to results or a percentage of profits. They will not spread themselves too thin. They will bet on what gives them a chance for a significant leap, even if it requires more internal tension. In April, they will lay the foundation for ceasing to live from paycheck to paycheck and begin to think in terms of large sums coming in blocks. In May, Scorpios will delve into the topic of control over all financial flows that pass through them. They will no longer allow anyone else to decide when and how much to pay them. Agreements will only be made with clear terms, penalties for delays, and written commitments. Work will only be done with a transparent mechanism of premiums, bonuses, and commissions. Partnerships will only be formed where their share is fixed and does not depend on the mood of the other party. In May, Scorpios will bring their financial relationships out of the grey area and into a legally and documentarily protected sphere. This will be one of the main protective mechanisms on the way to $1 million. June will be the month when Scorpios make their first significant bet on their own competence. They will not only perform tasks, but also offer strategic solutions, business structuring, cost optimization, risk management, entering new markets, building a sales department, and launching complex products. At this time, they may receive their first large fees precisely for their ability to see the weak points in the system and propose tough but effective actions. Companies and people who are not afraid of the truth will be willing to pay Scorpios very specific amounts for this. July in the life of a Scorpio will be associated with the topic of debt, both their own and that of others. They will close old credit lines and get rid of small but numerous obligations that have been dragging on for years and taking away part of their income. At the same time, they will strictly structure all situations where money is owed to them: debt repayment, overdue payments, forgotten fees. Where peaceful reminders do not work, Scorpio will resort to legal instruments, official claims, and clear deadlines. July will be the month when he refuses to finance other people's irresponsibility. In August, Scorpio will take a more radical approach to his own assets. They will not keep unnecessary things, just in case. If something does not work and does not bring profit either directly or indirectly, it will either be sold or converted into something more useful. Cars, appliances, equipment, excess real estate, anything that can be monetized will cease to be dead weight. August will be a month of turning accumulated assets into liquid ones. The proceeds will not be dissolved in consumption. They will go into reserves and further into carefully selected instruments. September will bring the Scorpio to the point where it becomes obvious that simply working hard is no longer enough. A system needs to be built. At this time, they will move away from the do everything yourself model to a model where there are processes, regulations, people, and automation. Scorpios will begin to delegate technical and routine tasks, leaving only those that truly require their depth, intuition, and ability to make complex decisions. This will not be easy. There will be a temptation to keep everything under personal control. But it is precisely the shift towards systematicity in September that will open up the possibility of scaling income without total exhaustion. In October, the investment strategy will come to the fore. Scorpio will not take risks, but will not leave money lying dead. He will consider several areas: real estate with clear profitability calculations, shares in businesses where he can really influence the outcome, and financial instruments with an adequate risk-return ratio. In October, they will create their first portfolio of assets that will generate income regardless of how many hours a week they work. It is at this moment that the trajectory to $1 million will change its angle. Money will start working for them, and not just them for money. November will allow Scorpios to see how their place in the financial hierarchy of their environment has changed. They will no longer be perceived as someone who can be offered something. They will be seen as a figure to be reckoned with, someone to turn to for difficult decisions, someone to discuss large sums of money with. During this period, there may be offers to participate in closed projects, partnerships with those who already have large capital, and access to environments where investments of hundreds of thousands are considered normal. Scorpio will not rush, but will not hide either. They will study, calculate, try to enter in small parts, test, and then enter with larger sums. December will sum up the year not as successful or unsuccessful, but as a fundamental turning point in Scorpio's financial self-identity. They will see what they have already created: reserves, assets, stable flows, solid legal structures, filtered partners, and cut-off ballast. They will stop perceiving big money as something that happens to the chosen ones. For them, $1 million will become a logical level that they are moving towards through concrete actions, not through prayers for luck. In December, Scorpios will be planning not how to survive next year, but how much to invest in assets, what share to buy, what position to strengthen. On this long road to 2026, Scorpios will learn several harsh but very beneficial principles. First, they will no longer finance those who do not want to change, neither emotionally nor financially. Help will remain, but only where people take responsibility and do not dump their problems on him like a bottomless pit. Second, he will stop playing the silent hero who does tremendous work in the shadows and gets crumbs. In 2026, he will come to the fore, where the outcome depends on his decisions and will demand his share for it. Thirdly, Scorpio will learn not to get attached to a source of income if it ceases to be effective. They will calmly close even those stories in which they have invested a lot of effort if they see that the ceiling has been reached and there is only stagnation ahead. They will not be interested in beautiful shells without financial content. Fourth, they will finally stop being afraid of big numbers. Whether it's turnover, investments, or profits, large sums will become a working category for them, not a reason for internal sabotage. Fifth, Scorpios will treat their intuition as a financial tool, but not the only one. He will compare his inner feelings with figures, legal documents, and risk scenarios. Where his intuition screams, "Stop," even with attractive promises, he will stop. Where his inner signal, logic, and mathematics coincide, he will proceed boldly and on a large scale. It is this combination of depth, cold analysis, and readiness to act that will make him one of the most dangerous players in the financial field. Dangerous not for himself, but for any system that is accustomed to profiting from the naivety of others. In the forecast associated with the name Abhigya Anand, Scorpio will be among those who will be talked about. He will be able to approach $1 million, not because it just happened, but because he will use 2026 as an operation to clean up, strengthen, and launch his own financial machine. And if he reaches the end of this trajectory, at the end of the period, he will see that the amount that once seemed unattainable has become just the next logical mark on his money scale. Sagittarius. Sagittarius will appear completely different in the financial picture of 2026 than before. From a traveler who is always on the road and often does not count money, he will gradually transform into a person who combines big picture thinking, bold steps, and a concrete financial strategy. In his vision, the Indian prophet Abhigya Anand will include this representative of the fire element among those who will have a real chance to make $1 million by expanding their horizons, competently monetizing their experience, and being able to act where others can only dream. Sagittarius will not settle for narrow boundaries, small tasks, and a life of leftovers. 2026 will be a year of great financial leaps for them if they use each stage of the year as a stepping stone rather than a random period. In January, Sagittarius will stop and look at their life without romantic filters. They will already have many attempts, projects, ideas, travels, job changes, and interactions with different people behind them, but a large system will usually be lacking. At the beginning of the year, they will clearly outline where the money actually comes from, which areas are more profitable than others, where they spend their time by inertia, and where they really earn. It is during this period that they will stop seeing themselves as someone who is always lucky and begin to position themselves as someone who will shape their own flow. January will be a month of honest financial inventory. No drama, just facts, figures, and conclusions. February will be associated with the decision as to which talents and competencies Sagittarius will turn into their main sources of income. They will see what they are good at: inspiring people, leading others, explaining complex things in simple terms, launching new projects, selling ideas, working with foreigners, entering new markets, and quickly adapting to new conditions. In February, they will determine what they are willing to take money for: consulting, educational products, event organization, project development in new territories, partnership programs, and content creation that influences a large audience. He will discover that his natural inclination to expand is not chaos, but a powerful financial tool if directed towards specific business models. March will be a period when Sagittarius will begin to actively expand beyond the local market. The prophecy will clearly state that it is representatives of this sign who will have the best chance in 2026 to earn money not only in one country and not only in one currency. Sagittarius will look toward international clients, remote projects, and digital products that can be sold to different audiences. They will update their profiles, add foreign languages, translate their work, and prepare presentations, proposals, and portfolios that are understandable not only to their immediate circle. March will be the month when the topic of earning globally ceases to be a nice phrase and becomes a task. April will bring more financial discipline into Sagittarius's life, even though it's not their favorite word. They will understand that in order to accumulate a large sum, it is necessary not only to earn a lot, but also to control the flow of funds. At this time, they will introduce simple but strict rules. A fixed percentage of each income will go into a reserve. There will be a separate account for investments and another for current expenses. Sagittarius will not become ascetic, but there will be fewer spontaneous, emotional expenses. Every important purchase will be subject to the question, will this increase my resources and earnings, or will it just give me a short emotional boost? April will be the month when the feeling of money disappearing somewhere will be replaced by the feeling of I control the flow. May will highlight the theme of publicity and influence. During this period, Sagittarius will strengthen their presence in the public sphere. Social networks, platforms where their audience gathers, professional conferences, online speeches. They will talk more about what they can do, show results, write, speak, and launch their own formats. Their tasks will no longer be limited to just doing well. They will think in terms of how to monetize this, how to scale this, and how to get a bigger paycheck through this activity. May will bring Sagittarius out of the shadow of potential into a plane where they are seen and fought over. June will be the month of the first big financial offers. It is during this period that Sagittarius will receive requests that will require a different level of responsibility, but also promise a different level of reward. Cooperation with large companies, participation in international projects, the launch of joint products, an expert role in teams that are developing something large-scale. They will ask questions about their share in the business, percentage of profits, royalties, and partnership deductions, rather than just a fixed payment. June will remind Sagittarius that the main risk is not agreeing to more, but getting stuck with less. July in Sagittarius's financial picture will be associated with testing their ability to withstand stress. There will be more projects, contacts, ideas, and opportunities, but the day will still have only 24 hours. During this period, they will learn to choose, not to grab everything, but to leave only those areas where there is great growth potential. July will require tough choices. What is interesting but not profitable? What is profitable but exhausting? And what brings both money and development? It is then, by giving up the superfluous, that Sagittarius will free up resources for key decisions that will bring them closer to the $1 million mark. August will exacerbate the issue of mobility. Sagittarius may change cities, countries, environments, markets, or work formats if it brings gains in money, opportunities, or connections. At this time, it will become clear that their strength lies not in holding on to a place that has long since exhausted itself, but in moving on to a new level at the right time. August will be a period when they can move, travel more often for professional purposes, and reach out to other time zones and audiences. This movement will not be chaotic tourism, but a well-thought-out migration to where their skills and energy are more highly valued. September will be the month when Sagittarius will reap financial rewards and simultaneously review their strategy. By this point, They will already feel the difference between what they used to earn and what they are earning now. But the main question will be different: how to ensure that this level is not a one-time spike. In September, they will calculate what brought in the most income: consulting, partnership agreements, educational projects, digital products, participation in international teams, sales of licenses, and copyrights. Based on this data, they will strengthen the most successful formats and gradually move away from what brings in less than it takes away. October will bring another important focus: working with currency and various financial instruments. Sagittarius will move away from the paradigm of "I earn in one currency and spend everything right away." They will study which currency to keep reserves in, where it is more profitable to store long-term funds, and how to divide financial flows between countries if they work in several markets. At this time, they will be able to open additional accounts, set up financial services that simplify international settlements, receive payments from different countries, and minimize losses on conversions. October will make his money more secure and flexible. November will be a month when the topic of $1 million will no longer sound fantastic for Sagittarius. He will already have a complete picture. Income for the year, formed reserves, first investments, cash flow from various sources, increased checks, and an increase in the value of his time. During this period, he will look at the numbers and understand that the path to a 7-figure sum does not consist of a single super project, but of a combination. Several strong areas: competent accounting, discipline, and working with the global market. In November, Sagittarius will no longer ask, "Is this realistic for me?" but will calculate, "How long will it take me to get there at the current pace, and how can I speed up the process?" December will end 2026 with a new type of financial result. Sagittarius will see not just the amount earned for the year, but the total value of what they have created: assets, an established audience, a customer base, a name that works in different markets, digital products that will continue to sell, and partnership agreements that will provide income even without their direct involvement. They will realize that the main breakthrough this year is not in the size of individual payments, but in a change in the scale of thinking. Money will cease to be payment for time spent for them. It will become an indicator of influence, the quality of decisions, and the right choice of directions. Throughout the year, Sagittarius will learn several fundamental financial lessons, without which reaching $1 million would remain just a beautiful thesis. The first is that freedom and responsibility will no longer diverge. He will understand that you cannot simultaneously want absolute freedom of movement and avoid clear agreements, plans, and commitments. In 2026, freedom for him will mean the ability to choose, not the absence of rules. The second lesson is that scale without structure will always fail. Sagittarius will implement a minimum set of systems for himself: a financial spreadsheet, a calendar with deadlines, a content or launch plan, a list of key contacts, and quarterly goals. He will not need strict micromanagement, but a basic framework will be mandatory. It is on this framework that he will be able to impose his spontaneity and creativity. The third lesson is that the risk for him will not be in bold projects, but in remaining in small formats for fear of failure. He will learn to get involved in bigger projects with calculation, setting a minimum acceptable result, preparing a plan B, and distributing resources so that one failed attempt does not destroy everything. In 2026, Sagittarius will take risks wisely, not putting all his eggs in one basket, but also not hiding behind small tasks. Fourth, his word and reputation will become a separate financial asset. A deal involving Sagittarius will look attractive to many, precisely because he is someone you can do business with. If he promises something, he will do it. If he participates in a partnership, he will see it through to the end. If he makes a mistake, he does not disappear, but corrects it. Such behavior will attract people and companies that work with large budgets and do not want to deal with temporary, unreliable figures. Fifth, his energy, both physical and emotional, will become a critical factor for earning money. Sagittarius will understand that without a healthy body, a clear head, and a lively interest, he will not be able to handle international projects, negotiations, travel, and product launches. Therefore, in 2026, sports, recovery, breaks, and time to recharge will appear in his schedule. And this will not be a whim, but an investment in the ability to maintain a high pace without burning out. It is this combination, the courage to act on the international stage, the ability to monetize his charisma and knowledge, discipline in working with money, competent risk and reputation management, that will bring Sagittarius to the level that Abhigya Anand refers to as the territory of millionaires. And if he does not stray from this path in the middle of the year, then 2026 will be the period after which his financial bar will rise to a qualitatively different level forever. Capricorn. Capricorn in the financial field in 2026 will not move in fits and starts, but like a builder of a large structure. First the foundation, then the load-bearing structures, then the floors, which sequentially add height and weight. In Abhigya Ananda's prediction, this sign will belong to a narrow group of those who will be able to reach the million mark, not by chance, but through cold calculation, long-term tactics, and the rejection of anything that does not work for the financial result. For him, 2026 will be the year when money ceases to be just payment for labor and becomes a system that he will manage, just as a director manages a large enterprise. From the first days of January, Capricorns will view themselves as a separate financial project. They will break down everything related to income and expenses into components: main job, side jobs, old obligations, personal needs, regular payments, possible debts, credit lines, taxes. All this will not remain in their head. It will be expressed in concrete figures. At this stage, they will see the main thing. The real amount of responsibility they bear has long exceeded the level of pay they are used to. It is in January that Capricorns will decide not to put up with the gap between their income and their workload. Towards the middle of January and throughout February, they will gradually prepare the ground for a change of position. Their actions will not be emotional. They will not suddenly quit everything and go nowhere. Instead, they will gather arguments, a list of tasks that they actually perform, the indicators they are responsible for, the volume of processes that will not work without them. These arguments will be needed for negotiations that will take place closer to the end of February, either with the current management, or with a potential employer, or with business partners. Capricorn will clearly explain why he should receive more, on what terms he will continue to work, and what role he is ready to take on for increased income. In March, Capricorns will experience their first structural break. Some representatives of this sign will change jobs, move to another company, negotiate a different level of remuneration, or launch a new line of business. Others will start building a second source of income alongside their main one: consulting, project work, participation in small businesses, remote formats of cooperation. It is important that every step will be calculated: how much time it will take, how much money it will bring, and how long it will take to pay off. In March, it will be impossible for Capricorns to remain in a whatever will be situation. Every decision will have financial significance. At the turn of March and April, they will move from simply increasing their income to managing it. a strict rule will appear. Part of their earnings will not be touched at all. In April, they will officially allocate several separate areas of funds for themselves: operating expenses, a reserve fund for several months of living, savings for a big goal, real estate, business share, portfolio, and amounts for training and development. Capricorns will not start saving on everything, but there will be significantly less chaotic spending. They will choose functional expenses rather than impulse purchases. Throughout April, a new tone will begin to emerge at work. Capricorns will not participate in tasks that have no endpoint and are not paid accordingly. They will separate eternal processes from specific results. Where payment is tied to performance, achieved goals, or completed stages, they will be fully involved. Where it is just a matter of keeping everything normal for a fixed amount below market value, they will either demand a review of the terms or gradually withdraw. April will be the month when he will no longer allow his labor to be used as an endless resource for a fixed minimum. In May, Capricorn will incorporate into his financial strategy the traits for which he is often valued: endurance, quality, and the ability to bring long projects to a structured conclusion. It is during this period that they will receive offers to take on leadership of a department, a complex project, or a key area of the business. They will only agree to options where measurable results are paired with appropriate compensation: salary plus bonuses, a share of saved or earned funds, and bonuses for meeting targets. May will allow him to move from the position of a reliable support to that of a center player. June will begin to show the first tangible changes in the numbers. Capricorn will see that the amounts coming into his account are no longer similar to those he was used to in previous years. Along with this, another feeling will appear: overload. During this period, they will understand that they cannot endlessly increase their working hours. The need to delegate will arise. In June, they will look for people to whom they can delegate routine tasks: assistants, executors, technical specialists. They will develop clear instructions, control points, and a reporting system for them. This will not be a distribution of tasks. It will be the creation of a mechanism where Capricorns are responsible for the system as a whole, rather than for every small element. July will be the month when the topic of time and energy will be on par with the topic of money. Capricorn will see that the growth in income that has already begun can easily be slowed down if they continue to work in a state of constant overwork. They will structure their day: blocks for key work, blocks for analysis, blocks for rest. Some offers that promise a small income for a large expenditure of energy will be cut off immediately. July will train the ability to refuse secondary things, not because there is no energy, but because it does not fit the financial plan. In August, topics related not only to work, but also to assets will appear in their field of vision. They will calculate how much everything they own really costs: housing, land, cars, equipment, intellectual property, customer bases, and business interests. Some of their assets will prove to be weak. Many resources may be dead weight, not bringing in a single penny. In August, Capricorns will make decisions to sell something, rent something out, reformat something, or legally formalize something in order to monetize it later. This will be the first step towards seeing themselves not only as employees or entrepreneurs, but as owners of capital. September will be the point where the question of investment will no longer be put off until later. Capricorns will choose the most understandable instruments for themselves: conservative financial products, shares in real businesses that they know from the inside, real estate with predictable returns, and neat portfolios with moderate risk. They will not rush into the most aggressive options, but they will not leave everything in cash either. September will be the month when part of their earnings will start to work autonomously, without their daily involvement. At this point, the curve towards $1 million will begin to change. Income will no longer be just a function of working hours. In October, Capricorns will return to the topic of agreements, but from a different position. If at the beginning of the year they will be advocating for a pay raise, in the fall they will have the opportunity to dictate the format of cooperation. At this time, they will agree to projects with clearly defined KPIs, percentages, bonuses, and trackable results. They will not participate in schemes where it is unclear what they will be paid for, how it will be calculated, or who is responsible for what. October will be the month when they finally reject uncertainty, making each of their roles financially transparent. November in this picture will be the month when transparency will be important, not only in money, but also in relationships. Capricorn will review the circle of people with whom they will take financial steps. Those who are not afraid of transparent conditions, do not hide from responsibility, and do not disappear at the first sign of trouble, will remain close. Everyone else will gradually fade into the background. In November, Capricorn will establish a simple rule for themselves. It is better to have fewer partners who are reliable than a large number of contacts, half of whom do not fulfill what was agreed upon. In December, Capricorns will look not at a single indicator, but at the entire financial picture. Total income for the year, the amount of money they managed to save, the size of their reserves, the volume of assets that already form the basis of their capital, the stability of new sources of income, and the duration of signed contracts. They will not be interested in a single successful month. They will be interested in the overall trajectory. At the end of the year, they will clearly understand how much is left to reach $1 million at this rate and what needs to be added, increase their share in the business, buy more assets, reformat expenses, or enter another niche. Throughout 2026, Capricorns will change not only their numbers, but also their financial habits. They will not allow themselves to zero out their accounts every month, even if they can. They will not agree to symbolic fees if their contribution is measured in tens or hundreds of thousands for the other party. They will not waste time on people who expect them to participate without pay or offer someday gratitude. Their yes will mean a clear agreement. Their no will mean the end of the matter with no return. A separate layer of change will affect Capricorn's attitude toward his own fatigue. He will realize that $1 million is not just about money, but also about the ability to carry long-distance loads. He will stop living in the mode of, first I'll do everything, then I'll rest. In 2026, his schedule will include pre-planned breaks, short trips, and days without difficult tasks. This will not be an escape from work, but rather maintenance of his own resources, without which no serious financial trajectory can be sustained. Another key point is the ability to work with risks without panicking. Capricorns will not avoid every risk. They will break them down into components. What exactly can go wrong? How much they are willing to lose in the worst case? How to minimize the impact? And what options are available if the scenario does not materialize? They will not participate in schemes where they are offered to invest everything now, and then a miracle will happen. But they will willingly get involved in projects where there is a clear economy, even if it is not easy. In Abigail Ananda's vision, Capricorn will be among those signs that approach $1 million not as a dream, but as a figure that follows from the logic of his actions. He will not look for easy ways, will not expect gifts, will not shift responsibility onto others. His path in 2026 will look like the consistent construction of a financial structure. First, getting rid of the unnecessary, then increasing the price of his labor, then creating several strong income streams, transitioning to working with assets and investments, filtering his environment, and clearly establishing the rules of the game. It is precisely this strategy, cold, structured, without unnecessary illusions, that will lead Capricorn to the point where, at the end of the period, his financial scale will begin to be discussed not at the level of fantasies, but at the level of specific amounts. And the million mentioned in the prophecy will become not an abstract quantity, but a benchmark that he will approach at a noticeable speed. Aquarius. In the prophet Abhigya Anand, Aquarius will appear as a sign in which money in 2026 will be associated not so much with physical labor, as with ideas, systems, technologies, and people that it will connect. Where others will fight for a place in the old schemes, Aquarius will create new rules of the game and receive very specific financial rewards for this. He will not ask for a chance. He himself will shape an environment where his way of thinking will become the basis for profit, and this is what will lead him to the amount that the prophet from India will call a million. At the beginning of the year, in January, Aquarius will work on their own vision of the future. They will not be satisfied with general dreams such as, "I want to earn more." Instead, they will paint a very specific picture for themselves, what their financial reality will look like in a year, what amounts will come in regularly, what sources their income will consist of, in what currencies, from which countries, and through which formats of activity. In January, they will form a simple but strict internal attitude for themselves. They will stop working exclusively within the framework of one city, one market, one circle of clients. At the beginning of the year, they will decide to reach out to a wider audience, even if it seems risky or unusual at first. In February, Aquarius's attention will shift to analyzing what he can do better than many others. He will consider his competencies not from the perspective of diplomas or formal positions, but from the point of view of real value, the ability to see trends before others, understanding of digital tools, ease in communicating with different people, the ability to launch new formats, work with online audiences, build communities, and create products related to knowledge, services, consulting, IT, and creativity. In February, they will decide what to monetize first. Not a little bit of everything, but 2 to 3 strong areas where their non-standard thinking will bring maximum income. March will be the month when Aquarius truly begins to engage with the online space as a platform for earning money. He will not just consume content, but create it, launch his own formats, showcase his expertise, share solutions that already work, and talk about tools that make life easier for other people. The first digital products, consultations, training programs, paid services, and clubs will appear, where they will act not as a passive participant, but as an organizer or leading expert. March will lay the foundation for Aquarius to start earning money from the internet systematically, rather than sporadically. In April, Aquarius will become more active in terms of teams and partnerships. They will feel that they can do a lot on their own, but time and resource constraints limit the scale. During this period, they will begin to gather people around their projects, technical specialists, designers, marketers, and other experts who will complement their strengths. It is important that Aquarius will not rely solely on enthusiasm in April. They will build a format where everyone knows their role and has a clear reward. They will only enter into partnerships where the shares, responsibilities, and exit rules are clearly defined. In this way, they will avoid the chaos and resentment that always destroy financial stories. May will be the first month when Aquarius will feel that the flow of funds is beginning to accelerate. Income will come from several sources: fixed payments for core activities, fees for online activities, payments from new clients, and possibly the first payments for participation in joint projects. In May, they will seriously consider for the first time how to prevent money from dissolving into everyday expenses. They will create separate accounts and divide the amounts into categories: basic needs, development, investments, reserves, and entertainment. May will cement an important habit. Part of the money from each income will be isolated from spontaneous decisions. And it is from this part that capital will eventually be formed. In June, Aquarius will work on their ability to stay focused. They will have many ideas, several parallel projects, and a constant flow of information, requests, and offers. The main task this month is not to get distracted. They will clearly identify the central directions, 2 or 3 main sources of income, and 1 promising direction that needs to be developed. In June, they will learn to say no to everything that does not fit into this framework: minor tasks, temporary commitments that take up a lot of time but yield symbolic results. It is precisely their ability to say no that will increase their potential earnings. July will draw Aquarius's attention to the international dimension of their activities. At this time, opportunities may open up for cooperation with foreign clients, platforms where payment is made in a different currency, and participation in programs that are not only focused on the local market. They will update their portfolio, translate materials, prepare versions of their products in other languages, and adapt their services to other countries. July will be the month when they realize that being tied to only one economy limits their speed of movement to 1 million. Their income structure will begin to change. Currencies that are more stable or offer more investment opportunities will appear in it. In August, Aquarius will focus on technology as a tool for saving time and increasing income. They will integrate new programs, services, automation, analytics, artificial intelligence, everything that helps them do more in fewer hours. This will apply to working with clients, marketing, and internal processes. Where they used to have to work late into the night, they will now have customized systems, auto funnels, templates, sales platforms, and CRM. In August, Aquarians will transform chaotic activity into manageable business processes, and this will allow them to increase their volume without burning themselves out with work. September will be a period of analysis. Aquarius will summarize the interim financial results of the year. How much has been earned in total? What is the average monthly income? Which areas are growing and which are stagnating? Which customers bring in most of the profit? And which products or services have the greatest potential for scaling? Based on this picture, they will adjust their strategy, reduce participation in weak areas, increase presence in strong ones, consolidate, modify, or close what does not meet the new financial goals. September will be the moment when the move to 1 million becomes not an emotional desire, but a mathematical model. October will bring the topic of investments and long-term decisions. Aquarius will look at where to invest the money he has already accumulated. In his business, scaling, advertising, new products. In technological tools that will further increase efficiency. In financial assets, in real estate, in shares in partner projects. They will not waste their energy on random experiments. On the contrary, they will spend a long time studying, comparing, and consulting. October will be the month when they begin to turn temporary surpluses into a foundation that will not disappear, even if their current sources of income change someday. In November, Aquarius will work on expanding their influence. They will broaden their audience, enter new platforms, collaborate with opinion leaders, join other communities as an expert, launch joint products, and participate in major online or offline events. During this period, it will be important not just to shine, but to clearly understand why it is needed. Each public appearance should either bring in customers, increase the average check, or open a channel through which paid solutions can be launched. November will make Aquarius's name more recognizable, and with it, trust in everything they offer on the market will grow. December will end the year with a strong feeling that money is no longer something uncontrollable. Aquarius will see the overall financial path, where it started in January, which decisions proved to be key, which areas brought the most growth, how the income structure changed, which tools worked better than expected. They will already have a reserve, a set of assets, stable flows from several sources, an extensive network of contacts, and a reputation as someone who knows what they are doing. In December, he will plan not according to the principle of enough, but according to the principle of how to distribute an amount that already exceeds previous notions of the norm. Throughout 2026, Aquarius will change not only the numbers, but also their internal attitudes toward money. They will no longer perceive financial success as something that is either given or not. They will have a clear understanding. Money will go where there is a unique perspective, the ability to create something new, and a willingness to take responsibility for systems, not just for performing individual tasks. They will stop agreeing to projects where they are given a narrow slice of the work, but are not allowed to make decisions that affect the outcome. At the same time, Aquarians will gradually abandon the role of eternal rebels who fundamentally do not fit into any system. In 2026, they will continue to think outside the box, but will no longer destroy everything for the sake of protest. Instead, they will build their own structures, where freedom is combined with agreements, rules, numbers, and legal frameworks. Such structures will become a source of steady, rather than random, large income. Another important point is working with their own fears related to wealth. Aquarians often subconsciously fear that big money will tie them down, deprive them of their independence, and change their social circle in the wrong direction. In 2026, they will separate stereotypes from reality. They will be able to remain themselves, retain their freedom of movement, their own opinions, and their creative approach, while having a strong financial base. The more he realizes this, the easier it will be for him to allow himself to earn significantly more than before. Aquarians will also learn to value their time and intellectual contribution. They will stop responding to endless free requests for quick advice or a quick glance, where people are actually asking for full-fledged consultation. In 2026, they will convert most of these requests into paid sessions, products, and programs that are structured, well-developed, and truly beneficial. This is not about greed, but about respect for their resources and a willingness to build professional relationships rather than using themselves as an always available free service. As a result, Aquarius's path to big capital in 2026 will look like a sequence of decisions, where each step will distance them from chaotic attempts and bring them closer to a systematic result. A clear vision at the beginning of the year, the selection of strong competencies in February, the launch of online sources of income in March, the building of teams and partnerships in April, discipline and distribution of financial flows in May, concentration in June, entering the international arena in July, technological strengthening in August, analytics and course correction in September, investment steps in October, scaling up influence in November, strategic planning against the backdrop of an already changed reality in December. It is precisely this line of events and decisions that will allow Aquarius to enter the category of people for whom a million will cease to be a theoretical symbol and become a real benchmark, towards which they will confidently move without giving up either their freedom or their own uniqueness. Pisces. In 2026, Pisces will reach a financial level that previously could only be spoken of with cautious hope. According to the vision of the Indian prophet Abhigya Ananda, it is the representatives of this sign who will very quickly begin to close the gap to 1 million, thanks to the fact that they will learn to transform their sensitivity, ability to understand others, and deep intuition into clear, structured sources of income. They will no longer allow themselves to live according to the "somehow I'll get by" scheme, nor will they give themselves away for free to anyone who just asks for advice or support. For Pisces, 2026 will be a period when emotional and spiritual depth will begin to combine with sober financial calculation. At the beginning of the year, in January, Pisces will stop and take a very close look at their finances. They will write down all sources of income, even the smallest ones: main job, occasional orders, small side jobs, creative fees, online chat consultations, any spontaneous projects. At the same time, they will record their regular expenses and leaks of funds, loans, subscriptions, impulse purchases, help to others, which is given automatically without thinking about their own needs. In January, it will become clear to Pisces that the main problem is not a lack of opportunities to earn money, but a complete lack of a system. And that is when the solution will appear. In 2026, they will live as people who manage their own finances, rather than as those who are constantly tossed about by the waves of circumstance. February for Pisces will be devoted to cleansing themselves of everything that drags them down. They will begin to deal with their debts, drawing up a repayment schedule, agreeing on realistic terms, and closing the smallest obligations that have been psychologically weighing on them for years. At the same time, Pisces will review their human relationships in the context of money. In February, they will stop automatically agreeing to scenarios where someone constantly takes advantage of their kindness. Endless, "Talk to me, I'm having a hard time. Tell me what to do. Do it for free this once, then I'll pay you." Pisces will set boundaries. Some support will remain, but when it comes to systematic assistance, they will convert it into paid work. This will be the first difficult step, but it will free up the time and energy needed for a real financial breakthrough. March will be a month of searching for the main professional direction that will bring the most income. Pisces will analyze their strongest areas: in-depth counseling, psychological or energetic support, creative projects, writing, music, art, working with children, caregiving, medicine, spiritual guidance, crisis management, and conflict mediation. This month, they will choose not just what they like, but what can be packaged into a product or service that people are willing to pay for because they get noticeable results: relief, clarity, inspiration, a way out of a dead end, healing, a new course in life. Pisces will begin to create their first concrete offers: consultation packages, custom creative projects, individual programs, mentoring formats, and specific services for a narrow audience. April will be a month of learning financial literacy in a very practical sense for Pisces. They will understand how market prices are formed, what margin is, and why their services should cost more than regular working hours. Pisces will begin to study basic accounting tools, income and expense tables, monthly, quarterly, and annual planning. They will learn to negotiate, clearly state the cost, not reduce the amount out of guilt, offer options for prepayment, installment payments, or package deals. In April, Pisces' sensitivity to other people's emotions will be complemented by the ability to maintain financial boundaries. Sympathy is one thing, money is another. This will be one of the key turning points of the year. In May, Pisces will begin to enter the market more boldly. They will actively promote themselves, updating their social media pages, creating websites or landing pages, describing their services in clear, specific language, providing examples of results from clients they have already worked with, showing portfolios of creative work, and sharing some of their knowledge in the public domain. It is in May that new clients will start coming to them, not through word of mouth, but because people will see their presentation, depth, and style, and decide to entrust them with important matters. This month, Pisces will receive their first payments, which will be significantly different from what they are used to. June in the life of Pisces will be associated with the fact that they will begin to better understand the value of their time. There will be many requests. Someone will ask to take a quick look. Someone will want to get a little more than what is included in the package, and someone will try to bargain for a discount. In June, Pisces will refuse endless bonuses if they are not agreed upon in advance. They will begin to feel that without clear boundaries, their work is being stretched out and imperceptibly turning into help beyond the scope of the agreement. It is during this period that professional firmness will be formed, polite but unbreakable. Clients who respect these boundaries will stay for a long time. Those who are looking for a savior who does everything to their liking will leave on their own. July will exacerbate the issue of balance between earning and recovery. Pisces, with their tendency to dive deep, can work themselves to exhaustion if they don't stop in time. In July, they will consciously introduce time for rest into their schedule. Weekends without clients, days without consultations, periods when they do not respond to messages and do not get involved in other people's stories. This will not be an escape. On the contrary, it will be an investment. The better the state of their nervous system, the more they will be able to earn without losing the quality of their work. In July, Pisces will begin to understand a simple thing. Their brain, sensitivity, and psyche are key business assets that need protection no less than a bank account. August will bring a focus on developing additional sources of income. Pisces will not want to remain dependent solely on their personal presence at work. During this period, they will develop materials that can be sold repeatedly: online courses, self-help programs, creative products, music, books, illustrations, checklists, guides, ready-made scripts, meditations, and training modules. They will not give up individual work, but will gradually add scalable formats to it. August will be the moment when Pisces' income begins to grow, not only due to the number of hours worked, but also because a product created once will work for months. In September, Pisces will focus on the quality of their presence in the professional field. They will work to ensure that every contact with them leaves people with a feeling of reliability, depth, and specificity. No vague advice, no promises that everything will be fine without real steps. In September, Pisces will increase their expertise, undergo in-depth training, obtain certificates, and expand their competencies in areas that directly affect financial returns. They will choose programs that provide practical skills, working with customer requests, methods that can be applied, and for which people are willing to pay high sums. This investment in themselves will very quickly begin to pay off through increased income. October will be a month when Pisces will test themselves on a larger financial scale. During this period, there may be offers of partnerships with those who already have business structures but need the depth, empathy, and creative solutions that Pisces can bring. They will participate in the development of programs for companies, create content for large platforms, and engage in group work formats where their participation will be paid not by the hour, but by the result, changes in the team, level of engagement, overall effect. October will teach Pisces not to be afraid of large contracts, large sums of money, and the responsibility that comes with them. November will be a time when Pisces will feel that control over money is no longer slipping away. They will look at their account and see not only what has come in and gone out, but also the overall dynamics, how much their income has grown compared to the beginning of the year, what percentage they have saved, what amounts are already working as reserves, what has been invested in development, and what has been invested in instruments that generate passive income. November will also be marked by Pisces ceasing to react emotionally to financial stress. Instead of panicking, they will engage in planning. If something goes wrong, it means that they need to adjust their strategy rather than blame themselves or the world. This internal maturation will have a huge effect. December will sum up the financial path of the year for Pisces, not as a series of random events, but as a coherent trajectory. They will count not only how much they have earned, but also what they have created. A base of customers who return and recommend them, digital products that sell without their constant presence, partnerships that open up new markets for them, a professional reputation that allows them to raise prices without fear of losing demand. In December, Pisces will look at their financial horizon and see that $1 million no longer seems like something far away. They will understand that this amount consists of specific steps that they are already taking. Increasing their income, saving, investing, scaling up, and working with an international audience. In parallel with monthly changes in 2026, Pisces will develop several internal financial supports. First, they will no longer equate love for people with the need to work for free. Their sensitivity will remain, but they will make a distinction. There is an area of unpaid support, and there is an area of professional work where money is needed in order to continue helping and developing. Second, they will stop believing that spirituality is incompatible with large sums of money. On the contrary, in 2026, Pisces will realize that the more stable their income is, the less they depend on external conditions, and the more freely they can realize their deepest calling. Thirdly, Pisces will learn to protect themselves from financial manipulation. There will be situations when people will try to pressure them by playing on their weaknesses. You're a good person, help me. If you really want to change the world, don't think about money. We're friends, do this job for free, and then we'll figure something out. In 2026, they will respond to such messages differently, calmly but firmly. They will offer either a clear paid format or limited free assistance, but without vague obligations. This will allow them not to get lost in other people's stories and stay on course for their own goals. Fourth, Pisces will treat their intuition as a tool for financial decisions, not as a reason to avoid rational analysis. They will not chase every inner prompt if the numbers show that the deal is unprofitable. At the same time, if logic and intuition coincide, Pisces will act boldly, without delaying the moment of departure. This combination of intuition and calculation will make them very strong players in niches where both depth and precision are required. Fifth, in 2026, Pisces will learn to talk about money directly. They will stop being shy about the topic of payment, will not beat around the bush, and will not lower their voices when the amount is mentioned. They will be able to explain what exactly people are paying for the experience, for the path they have already traveled, for the time, for the energy, for the tools, for the result, for the support that is difficult to find elsewhere. This direct, honest attitude toward finances will attract customers who will not haggle to the last, but will seek quality. Thus, the path of Pisces in 2026 to $1 million will consist not of one magical event, but of a long series of specific changes. They will calculate and plan in January, clear the space, and regain their own resources in February. Choose the main direction of income in March. Enter into financial literacy in April. Reach a wider audience in May. Learn to stay within limits in June. Worry about recovery in July. Develop scalable products in August. Strengthen expertise in September. Enter into larger deals in October. Stabilize and analyze in November. And make strategic conclusions in December. If the fish do not deviate from this trajectory, by the end of the period, they will reach financial parameters where $1 million will no longer be a distant goal. It will become the next logical figure that they will confidently approach. No longer in the realm of dreams, but in the realm of a mature, conscious financial strategy.